If a single bag of rice can ignite a war, then the South China Sea tonight is the detonator for the entire region. Darkness suffocates the ocean. On the chopping waves, an ancient merchant vessel flying the Cambodian flag cuts toward the Philippine shipping lanes. Its hull rides dangerously low, weighed down by hundreds of tons of rice, stacked like mountains. Inside the hold, the dim yellow emergency lights reveal the tension etched on the sailors' faces. Half are Cambodian, half are Chinese. They know this run is illegal, but the massive profits from the contraband rice could change their lives forever. But look closer. Hidden beside the grain sacks are AK-47s, sidearms, and even RPG launchers. No one speaks, but they all know, tonight will not be peaceful. Suddenly, impact. The sea roars with the sound of high-powered engines. From the darkness, dozens of searchlights blind the ship. In a split second, more than 30 high-speed skiffs emerge, swarming the vessel like a pack of starving wolves. On board are pirates, faces masked, armed with rifles, machetes, and grenade launchers. A Cambodian sailor screams and the alarm klaxons shatter the silence. Instantly, the ship transforms into a combat fortress. Rice sacks are stacked as barricades, weapons are racked, the first muzzle flash sparks, and a stream of tracer rounds tears through the night. The ocean becomes a battlefield. An RPG slams into a lead pirate skiff. Boom! The boat disintegrates, tossing 3 bandits into the black waves. But the enemy force is overwhelming. They close in, firing grappling hooks that snap taut like spider webs. Pirates swarm up the hull, screaming as they breach the deck. Gunfire erupts, smoke blinds the eyes, and blood sprays over the white rice. A Cambodian sailor takes a hit and collapses on the sacks, his blood painting a dark streak. A Chinese sailor takes shrapnel, stumbles but stays in the fight, double-tapping a pirate at point-blank range. The hull vibrates from the chaos. Screams, gunshots, and the clash of steel merge into a symphony of death. The rice ship is now a slaughterhouse. Amidst the anarchy, a sailor screams out the realization. These aren't normal pirates. They have tactics. They are coordinated. He is right. The skiffs are suppressing them in squads. This isn't a raid, it's a tactical trap. Then, a long, deafening foghorn blasts from the distance. On the horizon, a behemoth emerges. Floodlights wash over the bloody deck, revealing the hull marking, Philippine Coast Guard. The exhausted crew looks up, a flicker of hope in their eyes. They believe salvation has arrived. But seconds later, a loudspeaker booms, cold and metallic. Cambodian vessel, lower your weapons immediately. You are completely surrounded. The crew freezes. The guns in their hands feel heavy. They realize with horror that this isn't a warning for the pirates, it's an ultimatum for them. Warning shots detonate. Boom, boom. The water explodes, showering the deck. The pirates don't run, they cheer. They are coordinating with the Coast Guard to close the net. The chilling truth hits the Cambodian and Chinese sailors. The Philippines isn't here to save them. They are here to swallow the ship whole. They have 2 choices, surrender or die. Gunpowder smoke chokes the air. The PCG cutter and the pirate skiffs hammer the vessel. A Chinese officer, blood soaking his shirt, grabs the encrypted radio and screams, "Beijing, emergency. We are under attack by state actors in disputed waters. Repeat, state actors." The signal pierces the atmosphere, hitting the radar screens of the Chinese Navy. The report reaches Beijing instantly. A cold order is issued. Deploy the task force. Protect Chinese citizens and cargo at all costs. Darkness offshore is torn apart as giant hulls slice through the water. A China Coast Guard task force arrives, heavy patrol cutters, Type 056 corvettes, and Z-9 armed helicopters screaming overhead. Their searchlights turn the night into day. On the smuggler's deck, the desperate sailors look up, tears mixing with blood as they see the 5-star red flag. The pirates, once aggressive, panic as the wolves face a bigger predator. Skiffs scatter, engines whining. But the Philippine Coast Guard does not back down. Their loudspeaker blares. This is Philippine sovereign territory. Chinese vessels, withdraw immediately or be considered hostile. The Chinese response is immediate, voice like steel. We are protecting our citizens from armed assault. Any obstruction will be met with force. The South China Sea falls silent for a few seconds, save for the wind and waves. Then, boom. The first round is fired from the Philippine bow. It explodes dangerously close to the Chinese ship, sending a wall of water into the air. The Chinese heavy guns roar in response, shells impacting near the Philippine stern. Fire and smoke erupt. Diplomacy is dead. The Chinese return fire is instant and devastating. A 76mm shell explodes near the stern of the Philippine vessel. Fire and smoke plume red. A pirate skiff, caught between the two naval giants, is obliterated in the crossfire, exploding into a ball of flame. The night turns into a slaughter. The Chinese helicopter drops altitude, miniguns screaming as they strafe the remaining pirate skiffs. The water churns with bullets. The pirates on the water rout in panic, but those already on the merchant deck dig in, spraying desperate fire at the Cambodian and Chinese crew. The deck becomes a live-in hell. The battle shifts gears. This is no longer anti-piracy, it is state-on-state warfare. The merchant vessel is ground zero, hammered by artillery from both sides. Rice sacks are ripped apart by shrapnel, white grains flying like snow, mixing with smoke and fresh blood. A Cambodian officer drops two pirates before collapsing onto a pile of ruined cargo, his lifeblood soaking the very commodity they died to protect. Overhead, the Chinese helicopter banks hard, dropping flares to illuminate the kill zone. The tactical situation is clear. The Philippines and the pirates are acting as a hammer and anvil, and China is trying to cut the net. Artillery rounds scream in, churning the sea into a frothing cauldron. Everyone realizes this is a slide into total naval war. Amidst the deafening roar, a Chinese sailor grips his AK, hands trembling violently. He whispers into the smoke, "For rice? Are we dying here for rice?" No answer comes, only the scream of incoming ordnance. The sea is burning. The merchant ship is no longer a vessel, it is a floating graveyard. Rice sacks are pulverized, bodies pile up in the companionways. The survivors huddle at the stern, eyes wide of shock, breath ragged. A Cambodian officer screams through the haze, "Don't retreat, hold the cargo. If we lose it, this is all for nothing." His order is cut short. An artillery shell explodes danger close, blowing apart a row of rice sacks. 3 men are thrown across the deck, one never gets up. The others crawl into cover, shell-shocked. Outside, the Philippine Coast Guard and China Coast Guard trade heavy fire, water columns cowering over the ships. The pirate skiffs trapped in the middle are decimated. Bodies, debris, and burning fuel bob in the swells. The South China Sea has lost its peace. Tonight it smells only of burning diesel and cordite. Escalation. On the Philippine mainland, radar stations flash red. The scramble order is given. A squadron of FA-50 jets roars down the runway, afterburners tearing through the black sky like comets. To the north, Chinese J-11 fighters scramble from a nearby base to intercept. The war expands to the sky. Red lights flash in the cockpits, locking target. An FA-50 pilot dives from altitude. Air-to-air missiles scream off the rails, tearing through the air toward the Chinese formation. The ocean surface erupts. The Chinese HQ-9 air defense system engages. Vertical launch tubes fire, sending interceptors screaming into the clouds. The sky becomes a kaleidoscope of flak and explosions. An FA-50 brakes hard, popping flares to spoof the missiles, but manages to drop a smart bomb. It glides down. Impact. A massive explosion rocks a Chinese escort ship, sending a pillar of water and debris skyward. Chaos reigns. The Chinese armed helicopter pivots, its gunner laying down a curtain of tracers to cut off the Philippine jet's approach. An FA-50 takes a hit to the wing, smoke trails, but the pilot fights the stick to stay airborne. Above them, J-11s and FA-50s merge in a deadly dance, metal sharks in a sea of clouds. A missile finds its mark. An FA-50 disintegrates in midair, a fireball plunging into the abyss. But the Philippines bites back. Flak from their ships tags a J-11, forcing it to disengage, trailing black smoke. The sky is a burning storm. There is no horizon anymore. Only fire, death, and the screaming of engines. Down on the surface, the merchant vessel is being crushed in a vise of high-explosive ordnance. Every shockwave from the naval guns shudders through the hull. Sacks of rice spill into the sea, white grains floating amid slick black oil and red blood. It's a macabre mosaic of waste and death that the survivors can barely stand to look at. A Cambodian sailor, chest heaving and blood soaking his chest, whispers into the deafening noise. "We are just pawns. No one cares about the rice. No one cares about our lives." There is no reply. Above them, the sky is tearing apart. Below them, the ocean is waiting to swallow the wreckage. The Philippines doubles down. From Palawan, a squadron of F-16 Fighting Falcons gets the green light. Afterburners kick in, engines screaming, radars lock. Fox 2, AIM-9 missiles tear off the rails, leaving blinding white trails as they hunt for heat signatures in the chaos above. On the water, the frigate Jose Rizal cuts the waves, its 76mm main gun firing rapid salvos. Steel rain hammers the Chinese formation. Water columns rise like skyscrapers around the targets. China responds instantly with 130mm heavy artillery. The impact creates a shockwave that boils the sea. A Philippine vessel takes a hit to the hull. Fire erupts, forcing sailors to abandon ship into the burning water. But the air support pays off. An FA-50 drops a smart bomb directly onto a Chinese Coast Guard skiff. The vessel vanishes in a flash of expanding gas and shrapnel, reduced to burning scrap metal. The tempo accelerates. The line between law enforcement and military aggression is gone. This is a meat grinder. The merchant ship, once just a container for contraband, is now the epicenter of a geopolitical earthquake. The surviving crew, watching the horizon burn, realize their insignificance. A Chinese officer, bleeding from his shoulder, grits his teeth. This isn't about rice anymore. This is about honor, territory, and power. The storm has fully arrived. The South China Sea is a furnace. Tracers, missile trails, and burning wreckage illuminate the dark. The air is thick with the taste of sulfur and vaporized diesel. No moon, no stars, only the strobe light of muzzle flashes. On the merchant deck, the fight has left the men. They cling to shredded rice bags, paralyzed. A Cambodian officer, fueled by final adrenaline, spots a pirate clinging to the railing. He raises his weapon and drops the bandit. But the victory is short-lived. A burst of machine gun fire from the outside sweeps the deck. He falls backward, his blood spraying over the white rice he died defending. His men drag the body to cover, but the light has gone from their eyes. Every death just adds to the stench of the ship. High above, the F-16s and J-11s are locked in a death spiral. Missiles cross paths. A deafening boom shakes the clouds. A J-11 is sheared in half, becoming a falling comet. The pilot ejects, drifting down into hostile waters swarming with Philippine vessels. Moments later, the favor is returned. An F-16 takes heavy flak, catches fire, and noses over into a terminal dive. It slams into the ocean, detonating on impact. The sky is a graveyard of aluminum and aviators. The Jose Rizal pushes its luck, closing the distance. Its 76mm autocannon screams, walking rounds onto a Chinese patrol ship. The impacts throw Chinese sailors into the sea, their screams drowned out by the churning whitewater. Retaliation is instant and brutal. 130mm shell from a Chinese destroyer slams directly into the bridge of the Jose Rizal. Fire engulfs the command deck. The ship lists heavily, control systems fried. Every explosion claims another steel victim. The pirate fleet is effectively extinct. Most skiffs have been vaporized by the crossfire, leaving only debris and corpses bobbing in the swells. The pirate swarm, once aggressive and numerous, is effectively extinct. They are now just streaks of blood dissolving in the saltwater. The merchant vessel has become hell on water. The surviving crew, Cambodian and Chinese alike, are shell-shocked. Faces are mask-like, smeared with gore. They lean against twisted bulkheads, firing weak, sporadic shots. The rice is forgotten, profit is forgotten. All that remains is the primal instinct to breathe for one more second. The ship is a wreck, railings sheared off, steel plates buckled, deck planks smoldering. Suddenly, the air pressure drops. A deafening roar tears through the chaos. From the Philippine shoreline, a Harpoon anti-ship missile battery fires. The projectile skims the waves, acquiring its target. It slams into a Chinese Type 056 corvette. Impact. The warhead detonates, gutting the hull. Flames jet outward, and the ship lists violently to starboard. Sailors abandon ship, leaping into the churning dark, their screams lost to the wind. But the Philippine victory cry is cut short. A second Chinese vessel rotates its turret. The 100mm main gun barks, a direct hit on a Philippine fast attack craft. The missile boat takes the round amidships. Smoke shoots vertically. The vessel detonates from the inside out, disintegrating instantly. The air is unbreathable, a toxic cocktail of ozone, burning crude, and vaporized blood. The sky pulses with the strobe of artillery. Below, the ocean, angry and black, thrashes the burning carcasses of ships like giant torches. On the merchant deck, a young Chinese sailor looks up, tears cutting tracks through the soot on his face. He whispers, voice cracked with despair, "We are in hell, not for rice, for the power of the men in high towers." His comrade beside him grips his rifle, eyes burning red, silent. The cost of tonight isn't measured in metric tons of grain anymore. It's measured in souls extinguished in the dark water. The South China Sea has ceased to be a trade route. It is a slaughterhouse. The sky glows an unnatural red. lit not by the moon, but by the sheer volume of ordnance being exchanged. Missiles chase ship guns, flak tracers stitch the clouds. Philippine command goes all in. Radar sweeps frantically. Red alert blares across the encrypted channels. The remaining F-16 squadrons at the airbase kick their afterburners, shaking the tarmac as they lift off, spears of fire launching toward the horizon. At the naval base, the rest of the Jose Rizal-class frigates and fast attack craft deploy. Floodlights reflect off the chop. The Philippines has emptied the magazine. No reserves. This is it. Across the line, Chinese J-11 fighters scream back into the AO. Jet engines howl, drowning out the waves. The Chinese fleet tightens formation. The Type 056s and heavy cutters form a steel wall. Their 130mm guns are firing cyclic, barrels glowing cherry red. Attack helicopters hover low, miniguns churning the water into white foam. The distinction between Coast Guard and Navy is gone. This is total war. High-altitude engagement. An F-16 locks a bandit. Fox 2, the AIM-9 missile connects. A J-11 disappears in a massive fireball. But the kill is instantly avenged. A Chinese HQ-9 surface-to-air missile acquires an F-16. The proximity fuse detonates, shearing the wing off. The jet tumbles, burning, into the sea. The radio fills with screams and static. The sky is a graveyard of falling steel. Down below, the duel continues. The Jose Rizal fires its 76mm rapid-fire gun. Thud, thud, thud. Rounds slam into a Chinese escort ship, throwing geysers of water 10 stories high. Chinese sailors are swept overboard, but the return fire is surgical. A 100mm shell punches through the Jose Rizal's hull plating. Fire erupts below deck. Philippine sailors scramble, some leaping into the flaming oil slick to escape the heat. Close range, a Philippine fast attack craft dumps a salvo of harpoon missiles. Whoosh, whoosh. One is intercepted mid-air. Flash, bang. The second one punches through. It slams into the Chinese corvette. The explosion is catastrophic. Black smoke billows. The ship rolls over. Sailors spill into the ocean like ants falling into a fire. The brief cheer from the Philippine line is instantly silenced by a barrage of incoming artillery. On the merchant vessel, the fight has drained out of the survivors. They are paralyzed, pressing their bodies into the deck plates, hugging the shredded remains of rice sacks. The hull shudders violently under the concussions of nearby naval guns and aerial bombardment. The ship lists dangerously to port. Gravity takes over. Sacks of rice slide off the edge, splashing into the dark water. The white grains float on the surface, mixing with slick black oil and drifting blood, a surreal cloud of debris drifting into the void. The crew knows the truth now. This ship is no longer a transport vessel. It is a sacrificial lamb on a geopolitical chessboard. Above and below, the world is a mirror of madness. Air-to-air missiles streak like comets. Naval rounds detonate in rhythmic, thunderous cadence. Attack helicopters roar low, vomiting fire into the waves. Every tick of the clock brings another explosion, another disintegrating aircraft, another hull breach. The original mission, the rice, the pirates, is ancient history. The entire world is fixated on the South China Sea, watching a minor collision spiral into a meat grinder. A Cambodian sailor, his chest a ruin of shrapnel and blood, slumps against a torn bulkhead. He gasps, his life leaking out with every breath. He whispers, barely audible over the din. One bag, just one bag of rice, and it starts an ocean of blood. The words fade into the smoke. He goes limp. His war is over. The night has swallowed the sea. It is no longer an ocean. It is a sprawling industrial graveyard. The cost is no longer tactical. It is existential. Peace has shattered. The air-naval battle rages for hours, turning the sector into a blast furnace. The waves themselves seem to tremble under the weight of the ordnance being dumped by both superpowers. The sky is scarred by missile trails. The water is a tapestry of fire and wreckage. No one speaks of the cargo anymore. The firestorm consumes everything. A Chinese J-11 takes a critical hit, banking hard, smoke pouring from its engine. It loses lift and noses over, slamming into the swells. Impact. A massive pillar of fire marks the grave.
A cheer rises from the Philippine comms, but karma is instant. An F-16 is painted by anti-aircraft fire. It can't evade. The round connects. the jet disintegrates into a fireball. The pilot never ejects. On the surface, a Philippine frigate lists heavily to port, flames engulfing the superstructure before the magazine detonates, gutting the ship from the inside out. Nearby, a Chinese escort vessel shares the same fate, sinking beneath the burning waves. Sailors from both navies are in the water, screaming, thrashing in the oil. Victory and defeat blur together into a single color, blood red. On the deck of the smuggler ship, the handful of survivors huddle at the stern. Their weapons are dry, their eyes are hollow, staring into the burning sky. The ship groans. The last intact bag of rice slides across the wet deck and tumbles over the rail. Splash. The white grains dissolve into the bloody water, drifting away like silent witnesses. A Chinese sailor looks up at the apocalypse above and whispers, voice rasping like sandpaper, "Nothing left, just the sea and the blood." The whisper is lost in the roar of the guns, a final eulogy for the damned. Then, the strategic shift happens. High command in Beijing breaks. The order comes down. Disengage. The attrition rate is critical. The Chinese fleet cannot sustain the position. The remaining Chinese corvette, belching black smoke, slowly traverses its turret and limps north. Above, the surviving J-11s hit their afterburners, vanishing into the night. Helicopters drop low to screen the retreat, leaving behind a sea of fire. The Philippines holds the territory, but the victory is Pyrrhic. The cost is astronomical. Smoke begins to drift. The waves are cluttered with debris, shredded fuselage, oil slicks, and life jackets. Under the dying light of the last flares, the scene is gruesome. On the merchant deck, the few men left standing stare into the void. They killed, they bled, and they watched their friends die, and they can't even remember why it started. The digital world explodes. News of the engagement hits the global wire. Social media is flooded with leaked footage, burning warships, falling jets, and the haunting images of white rice mixed with blood. International media dubs it the deadliest clash in the South China Sea in decades. Washington declares deep concern. Tokyo, Canberra, and Brussels demand immediate investigations. The United Nations calls an emergency session, demanding a ceasefire and a demilitarized zone. But in the halls of power, the dead are just statistics. In Manila, the government declares a successful defense of sovereignty, painting the fallen as national martyrs. In Beijing, state media broadcasts loops of injured sailors, stoking a furnace of nationalistic rage. ASEAN fractures, some nations call for restraint, others remain silent. Cambodia, the origin of the ghost ship, goes dark, silent as the grave, denying involvement. But the evidence is drifting in the water. The smuggler's vessel is now a twisted hulk of steel, a floating tomb. The dissolving rice becomes a dark symbol of how fragile peace really is. Hundreds of lives extinguished, billions in hardware destroyed, all for a single, unmarked vessel. The South China Sea has a new scar tonight. As the smoke finally settles, the world is left with a terrifying question. Was this just an incident, or was this the opening shot of the next world war? The night doesn't end with a cheer of victory. It ends with the heavy, crushing silence of the deep. One bag of rice, that was the price tag for hundreds of lives tonight. The guns have finally fallen silent, but the smoke still clings to the South China Sea, leaving us with a terrifying question. Was this just a tragic accident, or the first domino of World War III? If a nameless smuggler ship can trigger the full fury of two superpowers, just how fragile is the peace we take for granted? Who really won this game of death, and who is pulling the strings from the shadows? Drop your analysis in the comments below. Like and subscribe to stay briefed on the next conflict.